I should have never pressed play. I knew something was off the moment I found the USB drive on my doorstep, wrapped in a brittle, yellowed envelope with no return address. I had assumed it was some prank, but curiosity got the best of me. Plugging the drive into my laptop, I found only one file inside, disturbing_footage.mp4. The name alone sent a shiver down my spine. I hesitated before clicking on it, but eventually, the screen flickered to life. The video was grainy, black and white, and looked like it was recorded on an old camcorder. At first, it showed a dimly lit room, empty except for a wooden chair in the center. A single, flickering bulb cast sickly shadows on the walls. Then movement. A person, or what I thought was a person, walked into the frame. Their head twitched unnaturally, as if their neck was broken, and their arms hung limply at their sides. They moved towards the chair in stiff, jerky motions before sitting down. Then they lifted their head, staring directly into the camera. Their face, if you could call it that, was hollow, dark sockets where eyes should be, and a mouth that stretched too wide, almost as if it was smiling at me. The audio crackled. A distorted whisper filled my speakers. I couldn't understand the words, but they felt like they were spoken directly into my skull. I tried pausing the video, but my laptop was unresponsive. The person on the screen tilted their head, their smile growing wider. Then they spoke. "I see you." I jerked back, heart pounding. The video cut to static for a moment before the scene changed. My stomach twisted. It was my bedroom. The same messy sheets, the same half-open closet door. The video was live. I turned to look behind me, my breath caught in my throat. The room was empty, but the video kept playing. Then I saw it. In the closet, behind the door, something moved. I slammed the laptop shut and ran. I didn't stop to grab my phone or keys. I just ran. As I reached the front door, my laptop let out a piercing, unnatural screech from the other room. Then silence. I never went back. The police found nothing. No trace of the USB drive, no evidence of the footage. They told me it was probably a sick joke, a hallucination caused by stress. But I know what I saw, and every night since, when I close my eyes, I hear it again. I see you. It's been weeks now, and the nightmares haven't stopped. Every time I try to sleep, I wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, convinced that something is watching me from the shadows. I moved to a different city, changed my number, even ditched my laptop, but nothing helps. Then yesterday, a package arrived at my new apartment. No return address. No sender name. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single item, another USB drive. I don't know what's on it. I don't want to know. But even as I write this, the curiosity gnaws at me. My mind tells me to destroy it, to throw it into a fire, but my hands won't let go. What if it has answers? What if I'm already too late? I plug it in. A new file appears. you_should_not_have_mp4. I press play. The video begins, and my blood runs cold. It's footage of me, sitting at my desk, right now watching the video. The perspective shifts as if something is standing directly behind me, its breath faintly audible over the distorted hum of the audio. I don't want to turn around, but I can't help myself. The air grows heavy, the shadows stretch unnaturally. The whisper returns, louder, more insistent. "I see you." I finally gather the courage to spin around, but there's nothing there. Just the dim light of my apartment. My laptop screen flickers violently, and the video changes. It's now a live feed of my front door. The handle begins to turn slowly. I shut the laptop, grab my phone, and dial 911 with shaking hands. But the line is filled with static. A sharp knock echoes through my apartment. The screen of my laptop lights up again, showing one last message. There is no escape. The knocking turns into pounding, and then the door creaks open. Disturbing footage, the forgotten tape. I never should have taken that job. It was supposed to be an easy gig, archiving old VHS tapes for a dying media company. The building was almost abandoned, save for a skeleton crew that barely acknowledged my existence. My job was simple: digitize tapes, catalog their contents, and dispose of anything deemed unimportant. Most of the tapes were mundane, old commercials, forgotten news broadcasts, corporate training videos. But then I found one that didn't belong. It was unmarked, its plastic case covered in dust. The tape itself looked warped, as if it had been exposed to extreme heat or water damage. I hesitated before sliding it into the player, watching as the static gave way to something far worse. The footage began in a dimly lit basement. A single, flickering light bulb barely illuminated the room. A wooden chair sat in the center, its surface stained and scratched. The camera was shaky, as if the person filming was nervous or reluctant. Then, after a few seconds, someone stepped into the frame. It was a man, or at least what was left of one. His clothes were ragged, his skin pale and stretched too tightly over his bones. His eyes were sunken, but he stared directly at the camera. And then he began to whisper. At first, I couldn't understand the words. The audio was distorted, his voice layered over itself like an echo from 1,000 different mouths. But as I listened, I realized he was saying the same thing over and over. Don't watch. Don't watch. Don't watch. The camera jolted, as if whoever was filming had flinched. The man in the chair twitched violently, his head snapping to the side. His mouth widened in a grotesque grin. The whispering grew louder. Then, the screen cut to black. I sat there, frozen. My heart pounded against my ribs. I reached for the eject button, but before I could press it, the tape started playing again. This time, a live feed of the storage room where I sat. The angle was from behind me. My breath caught in my throat. The grainy footage showed me staring at the screen, exactly as I was now. But then, something moved in the shadows behind me. A figure barely visible stepped closer. Closer. I spun around, but the room was empty. Yet, when I looked back at the screen, the figure was standing right behind me. The tape cut to static. The room plunged into darkness as the overhead lights flickered and died. A whisper right against my ear. Don't watch. I ran. I don't remember how I got out of the building, but I never went back. I tried to report the tape, but no one believed me. The company shut down a week later, the building condemned. Sometimes, late at night, my TV turns on by itself, the screen filled with static. And if I listen closely, beneath the crackling noise, I hear it. Don't watch. A few nights after leaving that job, I received an unmarked package at my apartment. There was no return address, no indication of who had sent it. My hands trembled as I opened it, dreading what I might find inside. My breath hitched in my throat when I saw it. Another VHS tape, identical to the one from the office. I didn't want to play it, but a sick curiosity gnawed at me. I told myself I wouldn't watch it, just destroy it and be done with it. But as I held the tape, my fingers itched to slide it into the player, to see if it contained the same footage. That night, I dreamed of the man in the chair. His voice echoed in my head, whispering something new this time. It's not over. I woke up in a cold sweat, my eyes darting to the package still sitting on my desk. I had to know. When I finally pressed play, the screen flickered to life. At first, it was static, just like before. But then an image appeared. It wasn't the basement this time. It was my apartment. The camera angle was from inside my closet, peering out at my bed. My blood ran cold as I realized the footage was from that very moment. I could see myself sitting on the couch, watching the screen. And then, the closet door in the video creaked open. The screen cut to black. A soft knock echoed through my apartment. I turned my head toward the door, my pulse hammering in my ears. The whisper returned, clearer than ever, slipping into my mind like a slithering shadow. It's not over. I always knew something was off about the station. WZXR 9 was a dying local news channel, barely scraping by in a world where people got their information online. I was just an overnight editor, tasked with cutting clips and scheduling reruns. It was lonely work, but I didn't mind. That changed when I found the tape. It was buried in a dusty cabinet in the back of the editing room, wedged between outdated weather reports and abandoned projects. The label was handwritten in shaky black ink. Last broadcast, do not air. I should have ignored it. I should have thrown it away. Instead, I loaded it into the system and pressed play. The footage was raw, unedited. The timestamp read March 18th, 1997, 25 years ago. The screen flickered to life, showing an unfamiliar news anchor sitting at the WZXR 9 desk. He was older, gaunt, his eyes sunken and glassy. His suit was slightly oversized, as if he'd lost weight too quickly. Something about him felt wrong. He cleared his throat, staring directly into the camera. Good evening. If you're watching this, it means they haven't erased me yet. There isn't much time. Please listen carefully. My stomach twisted. What was this? Some kind of prank? The anchor continued speaking, his voice trembling slightly. There is something in the signal. It watches through the screens. We broadcast it without knowing. And now it knows us. Static crackled across the screen. The footage distorted, warping the anchor's face into something unrecognizable for a split second before stabilizing. When it cleared, his eyes were wide, filled with raw panic. He whispered, "It's here." The screen cut to black. I leaned in, pulse hammering, waiting for the next frame. Then the footage returned, but it wasn't the news desk anymore. It was the control room. The same control room I was sitting in. The timestamp matched the present moment. I watched, frozen, as the camera showed the back of my own head. The monitor in front of me displayed the exact same footage, creating an infinite loop of reflections. I turned instinctively, but the room was empty. Yet, on screen, a shadow moved behind me. Cold dread spread through my veins. I reached for the power switch, but the controls were unresponsive. The footage continued. The me on the screen slowly turned to face the camera. Only it wasn't me. The figure had my shape, my clothes, but the eyes were all wrong. Hollow, dark pits stared back. Its mouth curled into a slow, unnatural smile. Then, in a voice that barely sounded like mine, it whispered, "You shouldn't have watched." The screen cut to static. The power in the station flickered, then died. I sat in the darkness, heart pounding, breath ragged. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then, from behind me, the same voice whispered, "Now it watches you.